The natural world exerts some control over the growth of microbes. As scientists have learned ever more about microorganisms, we have also learned to control their growth. The development of methods to limit the growth of bacteria and protozoa in food and in our bodies has been one of the most important advances in human history. Here we describe some of these methods. Here are the learning outcomes, and let us begin. There are many situations where we want to control the growth of bacteria. In the lab, so the experiments work the way we expect them to. In our food, in water, medical situations, and in agriculture. Industries will also want to prevent bacterial growth. One of my friends used to work at a window blind manufacturing company, and she worked in quality control. At one point, they were getting bubbles in their blinds during electropainting. She suggested that bacteria were growing in their giant paint vats. They didn't believe her, and she brought over a sample of paint, and we painted some plates with it. Paint. This is paint. Sure enough, millions of bacteria grew up on the plates. The solution was to clean up the water they were using to dilute the paint, and the problem went away. In doing this, she saved the company millions of dollars. There are a number of methods of control. I will divide them into physical methods, chemical methods, and antibiotics. There are different terms used in control, and they have very specific meanings. Sterilization kills all viable organisms, including endospores. Disinfection removes pathogens from inanimate surfaces, but may not eliminate all microbes. Antisepsis removes pathogens from living tissue, but again, may not eliminate all microbes. Finally, sanitation removes pathogens to a safe level, but again, does not eliminate all microbes. There are numerous physical methods for controlling microbial growth. One of the oldest and most effective is temperature. Moist heat, steam, is more effective than dry heat. Boiling kills most microbes, but not endospores. Cold temperatures can preserve food and stop growth, but refrigeration, again, does not kill microbes. Psychrophiles, such as Listeria monocytogenes, are still able to grow. Microbes can also survive freezing. In fact, freezing and lyophilization, which is freeze drying under vacuum, is used for preserving microorganisms. Normally, it's necessary to add cryoprotectants that inhibit ice crystal formation when preserving microorganisms. When using heat to decrease the number of bacteria in a sample, 4 parameters need to be considered. The type of heat, dry versus moist. The time of exposure, the longer an organism is exposed to the heat, the more lethal it's going to be. The temperature, higher temperatures are more lethal than lower temperatures. And the total population targeted. A large population is going to take more time to eliminate than a smaller population. Dry heat at 160 degrees Celsius for 2 hours or 170 degrees Celsius for 1 hour is very effective at killing most life forms. It can only be used for materials which will not melt at these temperatures. A common method of sterilization in laboratories is the autoclave. Autoclaves are sealed devices that use steam under pressure. They are big, carefully controlled pressure cookers. The high pressure allows water to stay liquid above 100 degrees Celsius, and it's really the temperature that kills, not the pressure. A temperature of 121 degrees Celsius for more than 15 minutes will kill almost all life forms. Most autoclave cycles are longer than 15 minutes due to the time it takes to reach 121 degrees Celsius and come back down safely from that temperature. Releasing the pressure too quickly after a cycle can cause liquid to boil over, and that's why you need a shallow slope back down in pressure and temperature at the end. Autoclaving can be a harsh process that can alter properties of the item being treated. Pasteurization is a popular method to control spoilage organisms in many samples. We described the history of pasteurization in Module 1. This method heats samples to moderate temperatures to kill many microbes without altering food properties. Pasteurization is not a sterilization technique. However, it will remove important pathogens, including Salmonella, E. coli, Listeria, Campylobacter, Coxella, Mycobacterium, Brucella, and more. There are three popular methods of pasteurization. The original batch method consisted of heating a sample to 66 degrees Celsius for 30 minutes. Scientists discovered that raising temperatures just 6 degrees, 72 degrees Celsius, shortened the time necessary for treatment to 15 seconds. This higher temperature made way for the development of continuous methods, where material passed through tubing in a heat exchanger and then rapidly cools it down. In this way, large quantities of liquid can be pasteurized with a small unit. Ultra-high temperature sterilization is another method of, quote, pasteurization. Liquid is held at 140 to 150 degrees Celsius for just a few seconds and results in the elimination of all microorganisms. Basically, it is a sterilization method. Material can be stored for weeks at room temperature after treatment. You may have seen milk chocolate, like Hershey's milk chocolate, available outside the refrigerated section at your local stores. However, consumers are still getting used to the idea of some products not needing refrigeration. Another physical method is ionizing radiation. The high energy area of the electromagnetic spectrum, gamma rays, X-rays, and UV light can be a method of control. All of these wavelengths will kill microorganisms by damaging DNA and proteins. UV light is the weakest and it cannot penetrate deeply, so it's only good for sterilizing surfaces. The food and medical industry uses irradiation to control microbes. Using irradiation can increase the shelf life of foods. This chart shows a typical dose of radiation and the subsequent shelf life of the food treatment. The amount of radiation used does not alter the food chemically or change food quality. Fish, meat, and fruits are examples of food products treated with radiation, and you can see that it greatly extends the shelf life of these products. This allows their transport to many different areas of the country. An ancient practice for food preservation is drying. Drying reduces the water activity of the food and has been used for millennia to preserve meat. Water is made unavailable by evaporation or heating. Adding sugar or salt to a product, such as salted meats or sugar in jellies, can also reduce water activity. When you do this, then the bacteria or other microbes cannot grow in the food. Other physical methods cannot treat sensitive compounds, such as antibiotics or gases. In these instances, filter sterilization is an effective option. The sample passes through material with pores in it that do not allow bacteria through. There are three types of filters. Depth filters, A, uses stacks of porous material that will allow samples to pass through but cause bacteria to get caught up in them. Diatomaceous earth is an example of this type of filter. Membrane filters, B, often are made of pressed cellulose fibers, are a second type. And again, you create a material that has pores in it that will trap bacteria as they try to move through. Another option is nuclear pore filters, C, where a polymer is targeted with neutrons and then exposed to a chemical that eats away at the holes made in the filter. The time of exposure in the chemical dictates the size of the pores. The time of incubation in the chemical allows for careful control of pore size and results in highly uniform size cutoffs. In the laboratory, apparati shown at right are useful for filtering solutions. For small volumes, the liquid is pulled into a syringe. A cartridge containing a filter is put at the end of the syringe and the liquid is pushed through. For larger volumes, a vacuum filter apparatus is often handy. One of the best ways to demonstrate a mastery of the methods of control is to know where to apply them. To give you some practice thinking about this, let's answer some questions. So I'll ask a question, stop the video, see if you can figure out the right answer, and then I'll tell you what the right answer is. What physical agent would you use to sterilize an empty glass flask? The correct answer is an autoclave. Now, a dry heat oven could also be used here. What physical agent would you use to extend the shelf life of fresh peaches? The correct answer here is either irradiation or refrigeration. Finally, what physical agent would you use to add ampicillin, a heat label agent, to a medium? The correct answer here is filter sterilization. We've just covered physical methods, but there are also chemical methods to control growth. Many different chemicals also have antimicrobial properties and can control microbial growth. These find uses in controlling growth in food, water, on people, and in commercial enterprises. When using chemical treatments, it is crucial to consider the type of microbe, the presence of organic matter, the toxicity to non-target organisms, and the corrosiveness of the material. Right? Different microorganisms are going to be sensitive to different chemicals, so you've got to consider the microbe. Organic matter will soak up or utilize or react with control agents and make them less effective. So the presence of organic matter is an important consideration. Third, you have to consider non-target organisms and see if the treatment is toxic to them, how detrimental is it to remove them from the environment that you're working on. And finally, you have to consider how corrosive the treatment is to the equipment that you're going to be using. If you're using a harsh acid or bleach treatment of your tubing in your dairy plant and it causes the tubing to corrode and break, that's probably not a good treatment. In many ways, one of the goals of food preparation is not only to make the food taste good, but also decrease its microbial load. Adding acids, pickling, of food will achieve this goal. Acids can result from the action of bacteria in the food, fermentation, or can be added manually. Alcohols produced by yeast can also preserve food. Sugar and salt, as mentioned earlier, will decrease the water activity. Finally, preservatives such as benzoic acid, sorbic acid, parabens, which are fatty acid esters, spices, and other things can help to inhibit microbial growth, and those may be added. Chemical biocides are used in medical settings, agricultural and industrial settings, including the paper industry, the textile industry, plastic manufacturer, metal and woodworking, air conditioning, electrical and nuclear power generation, petroleum mining, and often others. Biocides will be used in these cases to control microbial growth. Often, the chemicals used are released into the environment, and that has to be a consideration. Chemical biocides are toxic chemicals that are non-specific for their target organism. They can be damaging to many organisms, not just the microbes, and their use has to be carefully controlled. The action of these compounds is usually non-specific in their target molecule. They will chemically modify or denature DNA, chemically modify or denature proteins, and dissolve or disrupt membranes. Examples of biocides include phenolics, alcohols, aldehydes, quaternary ammonia compounds, and gases. Phenolics such as phenol or orthocreosol will be used to inhibit, and they are lethal to many microorganisms. Alcohols such as ethanol and isopropanol will be used on skin to aseptically treat it before giving a shot, for example. Aldehydes such as formaldehyde and more often now glutaraldehyde can often be used to treat medical equipment. Quaternary ammonia compounds are often found in disinfectants. If you take a laboratory course or work in a laboratory, you're probably using quaternary ammonia compound to disinfect the lab bench before you work. Finally, gases such as ethylene oxide and beta-propionylactone can be used to treat various materials. Ethylene oxide, for example, when they package syringes, they will then treat them, sterilize them by treating them with a gas. And these gases will penetrate the plastics, kill anything that's in there, and then make the material sterile. I just want to briefly mention antibiotics at the end of this lecture as another method of chemical control. Antibiotics are narrow-range chemicals used to selectively target one type of organism. They are produced by bacteria, fungi, or plants, with most medically relevant antibiotics coming from microorganisms. We will have much more to say about them in the last module on public health and treatment of disease. This ends our lectures on the nutrition, growth, and control of bacteria.